Welcome everybody, Joel Silverman here from Silverman Law Office, RC3 Consulting and Social Flicks, our total host for this fun interview today. My gosh, am I excited. My good friend coming all the way from Laredo, Texas, my good buddy, Joseph Michael Dickerson. He is an unknown author. He's a huge proponent of giving back to his community. He's in the Rotarian Club. He's also a huge motorcycle rider, which blows my mind because he's got 7 kids and that his wife lets him run on a motorcycle everywhere. But my gosh, is this guy looking cool when he's got his chaps on and he's all leathered up and ready to ride. Michael, how you doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself, Joel?
Oh, beautiful day in Montana. We can't complain. It's spring. It's May. It's supposed to snow in 2 days.
It'll be 102 today.
Oh, you can keep that.
You don't have to shovel sunshine.
Hey, buddy, I want to thank you for giving us your time today. This is awesome. You joined us. So really, buddy, you have had so much going on. You dropped this book on us, The 3 Bucket Method. You also have the roadmap to rich. Do me a favor. Let's start with this bad boy, the 3 bucket method, because I teach to my clients a 3 bucket type method. And when I read this, I was like, holy crap, this is so similar to what I'm throwing out there. You know, I knew I had to get you on. So help walk us through, why is the 3 bucket method so important?
Well, the importance is, you know, your risk separation. You need to separate the risks and you need to separate the assets and your business operations. So the first bucket, and I'll go ahead and give you the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah.
The first bucket is what I call the moving parts bucket. So in the moving parts bucket, you want to have your different operational businesses. You want to have different businesses that maybe own heavy equipment. Down here in Laredo, one of the big industries is the transportation industry. So that's an example I like using is trucking business. You want to have the trucking operation, the one that has the authority, in one entity. You want to have a separate one, a separate entity to own the tractors, and then a separate entity to own the trailers. Because all 3 of those things can hurt people. You know, whoever has the authority is going to get sued regardless if there's an accident. You want to have the trucks outside of the regular operation to reduce that risk. But, you know, just owning a truck can create liability. Just owning a trailer can create liability. They can roll over somebody's foot and cause an injury. So that's the biggest risk. We put them in that bucket. Now, don't get me wrong. Each bucket has multiple layers based on the lines of business. So we would have 3 different entities in this one bucket, and as many entities as you want. One of the questions I get a lot, Joel, is, okay, can I do my trucking business and a food truck in the same business, in the same entity? I said, that's not the right question. The right question is, should you? Can you?
Yes.
Yeah, you can do a lot of things, but should you? I said, well, if somebody gets sick at the food truck, you might be shut down with your transportation business. If you have an accident in the transportation business, you're out of business in the restaurant. So you want to make sure you separate those things. So that's the first bucket.
Man, I got to interject because
Sure.
I love hearing you say this because, you know, folks, I said he's the motorcycle lawyer, and I guarantee you people instantly are going, why is he talking about liability? Isn't he a plaintiff's attorney? And I should have introduced you a little bit better. My buddy Michael here, he does estate planning, transactional work, business work, and a lot of the same stuff we do. And folks, what he's giving you is gold right now. I mean, this is honestly, you come in and you meet with Michael or I in our law firms, this is what we're talking about. One of our biggest areas is liability management, right?
Yeah, we want to make sure our clients are protected. You know, and this goes hand in hand, and I'll get back to the buckets, but it goes hand in hand with the estate planning. Is we can create these great asset protection devices, but how are you going to get it to the next generation? How are you going to get it to your kids, even though we created this big entity structure?
Yes. I love it because there is so much that we can bring in when it comes to estate planning and business, and we're going to get there. I want to keep hearing about the 3 bucket method because you and I can splinter all over the place, and like we always do when we get together.
So the second bucket is what I call the dirt bucket. So as the name implies, dirt, it's where you put real estate. Again, here you want to layer it into different entities. So what am I talking about? Personally, and I don't force this on any of my clients, you guys are big boys, you can make your own decision. But I make my decision, and I don't want to put more than $500,000 on black. So I try to keep aggregate of property, like multiple properties, in one LLC. So you don't want to have $2 million in one LLC if we can separate them. Obviously, if you have a huge office building, or you have a ranch that's worth more than $2 million or more than $500,000, you just create one LLC to own that asset. There are times when you might separate those further, like if you've got minerals, you'd want to separate those into yet another layer of LLCs. But you want to keep those separate from each other, because you don't want your little $50,000 rental house to then cause a fire, and then the tenants that got injured now own your ranch. You don't want that to happen. You want to keep those things separate.
See, everybody, so the reason I'm giving him the thumbs up, yeah, because it's just affirming what I'm doing too.
Yeah.
No, both our areas we're rich in natural resources. Texas, you got the Eagleford. Up here in Montana, North Dakota, we've got the Bakken shale play. Yeah. And I get these clients, they come in and they'll have a rental property in the same company as their oil play, right? Their mineral rights. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right. And so one of the things with mineral rights, as an example, is it doesn't really create a liability, owning the mineral rights, so you want to keep that separate, because it's not a risk exposure type asset. So that's one of the things that's very important to keep separate. So,
I'm glad you just brought that up, risk exposure, because I'll even talk to clients, they may have a 3 or a 4-plex that they're renting out to maybe lower income families, and then they'll have a high income property that they put in the same LLC. And I tell them, no, those are different risk buckets. You want different LLCs, right?
Correct. So if you have your office building, and even if you have multiple office buildings, but let's say you have office condos, I would say keep those $500,000 worth of office condos in one LLC, and then your residential real estate property in a separate LLC. Put them together by categories of risk. You're exactly right.
Great way to put it, by category of risk. So I'm 100% with you there. So what about the third bucket?
Okay, so the third bucket is what I call the paper bucket. Now, in the paper bucket, you keep your excess cash. You want to have any stocks that are not protected by your state statute. In Texas, retirement accounts are protected, insurance is protected. So we want to keep those type of things in this paper. You don't want to have those. You don't need to have them in this one, but you want to have your investment accounts that are not protected. So your play money stock market day trading account, that you want to have in the paper bucket. You also, and here's where I tend to blow minds, is you want to have the shares of the other bucket companies in this bucket. Okay, so I know, Mike, you just said you got to keep everything separate because the world will end and dogs and cats will start living together. So the thing is, owning shares does not create a liability. So if you own Apple stock, and Apple gets sued for something, you're not worried they're going to come and take my house. They're going to come after me for this lawsuit. No, that's the entity. That's Apple's problem, not your individual problem. As long as you maintain the companies, make sure you've got your minutes, make sure you document all the transactions, you have that a tight ship. You own everything in one place. This makes it so much easier to move your excess cash out of the operations because you're making a distribution to the owner. You pull it out and now it's in the owner's name and the owner's a separate entity. We usually use LLCs or limited partnerships, depending on if we have some planning ideas for limited partnerships. In Texas, it used to be really good to have a partnership, but not so much anymore. And I won't go off into the weeds there, but you want to have an asset protected entity there. So, and I don't know, in Montana, do you guys have charging orders as the relief on an LLC ownership?
Yes, and very difficult to get. Very difficult in Montana.
Right. So here, even if you get the charging order, then they're an assignee of the profits interest. So you can give them a K-1 at the end of the year. There's a 1976 case that the tax code memorandum, I think, that says that they're, as an assignee, you can give them the K-1. So
that's amazing.
How long would they want to pay your taxes?
Exactly. Why, if I went and sued you to get your LLC profits interest, and yet all I'm getting is a K-1 and no cash.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. that'd
be pretty rough.
Yeah. Of course, then the PI attorney will get a malpractice lawsuit.
You're right. Oh, awesome. So anything else from the 3-bucket method that our viewers would want to see?
Well, those are the 3 buckets, but there's more. You've got to have certain things in place. You need to have insurance. This is a good, solid plan. You're going to have protection, but you need to have insurance. Why? Well, number one, you need to be responsible. And you and I are big believers in personal responsibility. So you need to be responsible. If you or one of your employees causes damage, you want to make sure there's a way to make things right. You don't want to put a big target on your back to say, hey, sue me whenever you want. But if you honestly made a mistake, you want to make it right. Secondly, you want somebody else paying the lawyers to defend the lawsuit than you personally. So the insurance company is going to hire the attorneys that are going to cause them to pay the least amount of money on this lawsuit. So that lines up really well with your frame of mind. So they're going to foot the bill for the attorney. I was involved in a case probably 10, 12 years ago, and I was talking to the plaintiff's attorney that I had referred, and I said, hey, how much have you made on this case so far? And, he came up with, this was right before trial, about $76,000 on a drowning case. So, I mean, that's 76,000 real dollars that you would have to pay for that caliber of an attorney. So, we're not talking about, anything to sneeze at. Your premiums are going to be much less than the legal fees to fight a lawsuit from an attorney worth the salt. You might be able to find somebody who practices threshold law and says, oh, I'll take your case because I need to make rent or I need to pay my mortgage or my car payment. And then they don't know what to do with it because it's not what they do every day. But they do now because, they needed the money. So you're stuck with somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing, but they're cheap. And and as usual, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, very true. I couldn't agree with you more. The insurance is so key because the cost of litigating, if you don't have the insurance, this is what people don't realize. Paying your insurance over time is so worth it because all it takes, and you mentioned this in your book, you also mention it in Roadmap to Rich, how important insurance is, because that one litigation case, it's not about the result in the end. It's about your cost of getting to that result, right? And so maybe your insurance kicks in at the end too to help you cover that cost. But oftentimes in the business world, having the right business insurance, to me that I've seen is the key is covering the cost to get to the end.
Yeah. Then the other post 3-bucket method is, how are you going to get this structure to your heirs? How are you going to get this to your kids? And so you need to have the right kind of estate plan. You want to have an estate plan that's going to be efficient, whether or not you want to go through probate, whether probate is an efficient system in your state. Texas is very, probate efficient. However, I've been noticing some of the TV attorneys start to stick their toes in probate litigation, especially when there's assets. So we're really trying to move our clients more towards avoiding probate, to avoid those risks of litigation by these personal injury attorneys trying to get a disgruntled beneficiary and try to get them in to represent them, because hey, there's money in the estate. We'll get paid out of the estate.
Seeing the same thing. Couldn't agree more. Holy cow. We have the simplified probate code in Montana too. Much like Texas and a few other states. It's awesome that we have it because it has shortened our probate time. It's also made it easier because I haven't been in front of a judge for a probate case in years. We've only had to go in when we got pulled in to take over a probate that was not being handled properly. But do you guys have the beneficiary deeds in Texas?
Yeah, we call them ladybird deeds, or the transfer on. We also have a transfer on death deed. They're slightly different. We don't need to go into the weeds, but one you can do with the power of attorney and one you can't.
Yes. And then also in Montana, we've got that. And then we also are allowed to create a beneficiary designation on your LLC ownership or corporate ownership. So a private company, you can pass by beneficiary designation so that happens outside of probate as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have that. That's a good thing to look into, or to lobby for if we don't.
Yeah, it's been wonderful as an estate planning tool because it's really simplified the number of trusts that we use versus a will with all the beneficiary designations behind it.
Right.
So it's really made our lives easier in Montana in a lot of ways. But like you, it's really applying this 3-bucket method for each client, then making sure that they have the right insurance. So, I know you're a big believer like I am in having the legs to the stool, having your team. You got to have the financial advisor, got to have your attorney who's going to handle your business and your estate planning matters. You got to have your accountant, and you got to have your insurance agent. Those 4 people are going to keep you up. Yeah,
exactly.
So this is fantastic. Now, we got to get into Roadmap to Rich because this is some good meat and potatoes right here, folks. This is what it's worth.
On here.
Yes, there it is. Now, real quick, where can they get Roadmap to Rich?
Okay, that one I think is still available on Amazon. I know my publisher went out of business a few years ago, and so I know that there's some on there. We also have an e-version, and we're going to be relaunching it also on Amazon. That's kind of in process. We may be tweaking it a little bit to get it reintroduced out there. So
okay, excellent. So they'll be able to download it onto a Kindle or an iPad or.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Or they can go to our website, dickersonlaw.com, and they can request a copy. We can send them an ebook right away.
Excellent. And is the same true for the 3-bucket method?
Yes. Yeah, the 3-bucket method is also available on Kindle, and that one we just got on Amazon, so that they can buy on Amazon or download for Kindle. Or they can get a copy from my office.
Perfect. Beautiful. It was funny. So this morning I did a Facebook post video, And I just love on the 3 bucket method, the quote on the cover is so amazing from Zig Ziglar. Success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. That to me is so much of Roadmap to Rich, is having that plan. And I give me the juice, give me the gas here.
All right. So the Roadmap to Rich basically starts off with real estate investing and it's real estate investing and entrepreneurship. So you basically, it tells you different ways to acquire real estate and how to identify what's a good property or a bad property. Then we go into there's one chapter on there on how to do business, how to do things the right way. And so that's a really good chapter. I had given this book to our past governor, Rick Perry, and he called me and said, "Hey, Mike, can we use chapter 13 in your book to hand out to people? Because I want everybody who works for me, I want them to read this because this is kind of what we stand for." So I said, "Sure, Governor. Well, you can use it." And so it's important to be honest and be a person of your word, because sometimes you work a deal and you realize, hey, if I had waited a little more, I would have gotten a little more juice out of it. But when you do that, if you try to take it back, you'll burn yourself. I actually had somebody do that to me. We were literally sitting in their living room about to sign for an eightplex. We'd come to a deal, and right before we're getting ready to sign, the phone rings and oh, this guy's offering me more money, da da da. It had been just enough for me to say, okay, I'll do it. And he said, well, you know what, let me sleep on it. The next day, the other guy raised the price again. I said, I'm not playing this game. But I mentioned that in the book also is, you always, try to put your best foot forward and try to ask for the best, try to get the best deal you can. But, once you've made a deal, you can't be going back, because your word is your bond. And, Laredo's a small town, relatively speaking. We got about 250,000 people. But
that's only like 6 times bigger than where I live.
Right. So, but it feels like where you live. But everybody kind of knows everybody's business here. It's got a very small town mentality. So what happens is when somebody does something like that, you stop trusting them, and people say, why doesn't he do business with them? I don't need to advertise it, but it's like, nah, I'm good. And people start noticing those things. So it's important to be, man of your word.
I love that story, by the way. I had a similar thing happen, but it was my client that backed out.
Yeah.
And not only did we lose that buyer, but the other one, when they found out what my client was doing, they backed out too.
Yeah. It's not a good thing to do. Like a good friend of mine said, karma drives a big delivery truck.
So what are some other good stories out of the book?
Some other good things is I kind of have some charts here that kind of describe how complex structures work. And these are, I outlined what the different forms of businesses are, sole proprietorship and how that's not really a separate business, and the big risks that you take, and how a partnership is just basically a multiple of risk based on how many partners there are. And then we go into the different entities, a corporation, the LLC, limited partnerships, and kind of how those work and how we could put them together to provide the asset protection. And also you can incorporate some succession planning with these entity documents. So we kind of go into some of that in the Roadmap to Rich.
You keep coming to a theme, and folks, if you haven't picked it up, a lot of it's around succession planning, right? You and I are big believers in think about the end at the beginning, right? Start with that end plan in mind, and you can make it flexible, folks. But my gosh, you got to think about succession planning. If you're an entrepreneur, when you're building your asset base, man, what are some of the key steps? Because I know you get into it a bit there.
Right.
What are some key steps in estate planning that you see?
Well, some of the things that you really want to be aware of is as the business is growing, we get older, our kids become adults, and some of them want to be part of the business. Some of them run as far away from anything to do with the business. And then how do we pass this on to our kids? And I tell my clients, especially the ones with family businesses that have kids in it and have kids out of it, is fair and equal are not always the same thing. That's something that I think is very important, because, hey, my son is working in the business, he's participating, he's making sales, he started sweeping the floors, and now he's making sales and visiting clients, and he's helping grow the business. Well, that deserves a certain amount of recognition and certain amount of maybe asset assigned to him for that reason. Now, my daughter, well, she wanted to be a school teacher, or she went to be a doctor because she didn't want to have anything to do with the business. And so how do we balance it out? One of the good things to do is you could do life insurance. That makes it really easy. You may have other assets, real estate. So there are different ways that we can kind of slice and dice the estate to try to balance it. But it wouldn't be fair to have your son be 50-50 owner of the business with your daughter who doesn't want to have anything to do with it. It's just like, okay, well, just give me my dividend check at the end of the month. The motivation to work for 50%, aside from that we have to do that sometimes with our Uncle Sam and our other taxes. If you need to slice that pie one more time, it makes it not worth it. And if that one child that's in the business has really been growing it, they could take that knowledge base and say, you know what, to heck with all of you. I'm starting my own. I'll bring all the clients and enjoy the company and the company. You can have my shares. And they started their own company. And guess what? Thanksgiving sucks when that happens.
It's funny. So in our world, in Montana, we have a lot of ag families. And this is the most important part of estate planning, and in understanding it for parents, is that equal is not fair. You've got that kid who gave up that life to go to college, maybe to go somewhere else, and they stayed on the ranch. They've lived, and for us, most ranchers do not live high on the hog. They're living pretty financially poor conditions, and they do it because they love what they get to do. God bless them. How is it down in Laredo? What do you see a lot? What are they, businesses, family businesses, or is it in the ag world? Is it in oil and gas?
Yeah, there's not so much ranching. I mean, there is some, but it's a lot less. As far as there's much fewer families that are doing it, and the land is just. It's easier to just say, well, I'll have my 50% of the shares of the real estate. It's a little easier to split. But when you've got the trucking business, well, one of the kids is, been working in the trucking business since he was little, and because he loves the smell of diesel fuel. And then another one is like, that's the last thing I want to do. Get me as far away from this as possible. So there are different things. And I tell my clients, hey, but the business is the biggest asset. And I say, yes, but if that child says, you know what, I don't want to do anything, I want to sit back and just collect money, that business is very quickly going to turn to nothing. Whereas your other child who isn't getting the business, maybe they're getting life insurance, they're getting cash, and they can just sit back and do nothing. They're not getting a job, they're getting cash, and that cash they can spend it and go through it, but they don't have to sweat for it. Whereas your child that works in the business, they're inheriting a job too. So they may
Yes.
be living well, but they're paying for it with blood, sweat, and tears.
Absolutely. And we see the very same thing. Amazingly enough, folks, when you plan your business with the end in mind, one of the things that you and I both used to see a lot, and we've talked about this before, was we had clients getting life insurance to cover estate taxes. Well, we don't have that so much anymore. So
Yes.
now, at least in our world, we're taking that life insurance that was there for estate tax, we're using it for some equalization purposes now, right? So parents are saying, okay, well, my child that's not in the business, we're going to give them the cash from the life insurance, and the child that's in the business is getting the business. Are you seeing that a lot, or what kind of twist are you seeing?
We're seeing that now. Here's another twist that I don't know if happens with you, and I would think none of the kids want to have anything to do with the business. Okay, so what do you do then? Well, in our case, some of the things that we look at is, well, who's a key employee who could buy this business, and maybe you finance it for them, and you basically get your pension is the purchase of this business. They get the business, they get to start operating, you phase out, you get to retire, but you still have the asset. Somebody is going to be able to continue the legacy you've built. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's not your family, but they don't want it anyway. But you can develop something that can continue. I've got one of my big trucking clients. He tells me, I want this business to last for 200 years or more. And he started it from scratch. He started out as a mechanic in Mexico, diesel mechanic. Then he got to be a truck driver. Then he got his own trucks, and then he built his empire. He's got probably about 500 trucks at least. Wow. And he's got terminals here in Laredo and in Detroit and a couple in between. So he's really grown. I mean, he's one of the guys that does need that life insurance for the taxes.
Yeah.
But his kids want to be in the business. They see the value. Some of them are really hardworking, and they've stepped up to where they're ready to take the reins. And then there's other ones who are like, look, I come in at 2, I come in at 10 in the morning. I leave at 12 for lunch. I come in at 2:30 from lunch. Then I punch out at 4:30, and that's my day. And so they say, yeah, but I get a lot of stuff done in 4 hours. It's like, okay, but that's probably not the one you want to give the majority shares to. I had a client once told me, Mike, the children are like the fingers of your hand. Everyone is different.
Absolutely. So
of course,
what else?
I need both hands.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait, you got 7, so you got a lot more going. So what are some other good key takeaways from Roadmap to Rich?
All right. Well, let me pull it out here and see what some of the chapters are. One of the things that I talk about is how to become a millionaire in 15 years, starting with only $10,000. Okay, so that's a very common sense, get rich slow. I've had many clients who start off as school teachers, and they retire and they're making a whole bunch of money off their rental properties, because what they did was they started with one, they paid it down, then they leveraged the equity to buy another property, then they leveraged that equity to buy another one. Over time, their asset base grew to where now they have a larger amount of equity that's generating cash flow for them. So you can take things a step at a time, and it doesn't matter so much what environment you are. You can be in a recession. If you find a good deal, you can make this work. The key is you need to look at 100 properties And out of those 100, 10 may be interesting. Out of those 10, you may put a contract on 3, and out of those 3, you might get 1. So it's a numbers game, just like everything else in business. But you need to devote the time and the attention, and you can get to be a millionaire in 15 years if you follow this process.
Absolutely. You know, I these get rich quick schemes just drive me bonkers. If the slow, steady, you look at a Warren Buffett, what he talks about in compounding, in you know, getting your different asset classes, utilizing real estate, but being smart about it. You've got to do your homework. It doesn't just happen. You don't walk in and get, you know, oh, every piece of property is going to turn into this. No, do your homework, right?
Yeah. And you need to not get emotional about it.
Thank you.
I paid dearly for that, and I won't get into too much detail, but you need to not get emotional about a property and not get an ego about it. I got into a deal that didn't turn out well. That I got in because I was buying a property from one of my mentors. My mentor says, I don't want to sell you the property because you're going to wind up divorced. And, you know, I did, but it wasn't because of that. But it was, hey, you know what? I can meet the price that my mentor wants, and and I'm going to make it work. And, you know, I kind of puttered along for a while, but it was not a good deal. And if I had been unemotional about it and I had to take my ego out of it, I would have passed on that deal. Or I would have stuck to a lower price. So, you know, you got to not have an ego in the equation, because it will cost you, you know, a lot if your ego is in there and you have to do it because you got something to prove. Or if this is the property I love. If it's your house, that's one thing. You can live there. You want happy wife, happy life. But if it's a business deal, if you're buying this property because it's a business opportunity, you have to look at the numbers, because numbers don't lie.
100%. How do you coach someone to remove their ego, their attachment to an investment property?
Well, one of the things I do is I say, okay, let's put pencil to paper. And I just did an interview with one of my clients, one of my avatar clients, and he says, Mike, one of the things I do is I really like drawing plans, because if you want to move a wall, you just erase and then you draw it somewhere else. So it's the same thing with coaching clients. It's okay. Let's look at the numbers. How much is this property going to cost? Okay, it's this much. Okay, how much money how much income are you going to generate? Okay, this much. Okay, now what are the expenses? Okay, so it's this, and you know, you're writing it down and says, okay, well, how much are the taxes? And I start throwing out expenses that they haven't thought about, like who's going to cut the grass? What's going to happen when the taxes increase to what they're paying now to the price that you just bought it at, because the appraisal district's going to figure that out pretty quick. And what about if you need a new roof, or how much money are you going to set aside for these emergencies? And at the end of the day, you need to pay yourself. So you need to make a profit in there, at least 10%. So what does the math do? Well, I'm losing $300 every month. I said, oh, okay. How does that deal sound to you? You know, because I'll do that for you. You don't even have to pay the closing costs. You can give me $300 a month just for fun. I can make that deal happen for you. And so they start getting it. They start saying, yeah, this is not the opportunity. And very similarly, and I'm sure you see this, you know, as our clients, you know, advance in their business and they're doing better, they move on to buying a bigger house, a nicer house, then they want to rent the property that they have. And I say, okay, well, you know, let's do the math. Does it make sense? Well, I already own it. Okay, but what are the expenses? How much money are you going to make off the deal? Because remember, when you bought that house, you didn't buy it with the idea that you're going to rent it. You bought it with the idea that this is your home where you're going to live in, and you want to be comfortable, and it's okay to spend a little more money on comfort. Now, does the math work as a business? And usually it doesn't unless they got a really good deal when they bought it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where, okay, well, if you sold it and you made this much profit, could you buy another rental property, if that's what you want to do, that would generate more income than renting your house right now? And they're like, well, yeah, I guess I could. I could buy a fourplex instead of renting my house. Yeah, and guess what? In a fourplex, if you have one tenant, you're only 25% vacant. In a rental house, if you lose one tenant, you're 100% vacant. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's something to look at very, very coldly.
And you know, I got to say, I love all this stuff you're talking about. The one thing that gets forgotten a lot about rental property is including what are your income taxes going to be?
Oh,
Because repayment of a mortgage, the principal is not deductible.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the number of people who've come to me and they said, Joel, you're telling me about rental properties and how great they are. And I got to the end of the year and I was upside down. It cost me money in taxes.
Yeah.
And I said, did you think to talk to your accountant before you bought it so you could do the numbers?
Yeah.
I said, that's on you. You didn't do your right homework.
Yeah, no, that's a big shocker. But you know, your income tax is a really important thing to look at, and you got to look at it whenever you're making any kind of investment. You know, what are the tax? You don't want the tax tail to wag the dog, but you need to keep it in mind. You need to make sure that, oh yeah, this sounds like a great deal, but if your margins are razor thin, you could wind up, you know, losing that, making it a loss when tax time comes.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we're getting close to wrap up time. Anything else in this book that you want to throw out there that you know is just home run material, last volley for folks?
All right, let me take a quick look at here. Well, one of the things is you want to make sure you have a business plan. Whenever you do any kind of business, like you said, start with the end in mind. You need to have a business plan. And it doesn't have to be one of these fancy 800-page tomes that you can buy and have a software spit out. You've got to think of certain things. You've got to think about, number one, how much capital do you really have? What kind of market is there? I mean, are people really going to want to buy your widget? You know, or is this just something you like and you think everybody should like? You know, is it going to sell? Is there an actual interest in it? Then, so you need to do a market analysis. Will it sell? Then you need to see how much is it actually going to cost for you to make it and get it out to market. What are the strengths, weaknesses, you know, opportunities and threats? Is the minute you put this idea out, is some Chinese company going to come in, copy it, and then sell a bunch, and you didn't patent it, you didn't do all these things, and now, and even if that, you know, you might still be at risk, but you don't have any kind of protection for your idea. So, you know, you've got to have a plan, and at the very least, it's to go through the exercise of seeing what are these different things that I need to be aware of. What are my strengths going in, and what are my weaknesses? Maybe I'm not really good with numbers and finance. Maybe I need to really make sure that my accountant is going to hold my hand through this. You know, my strength may be sales. You may be a little optimistic. You know, threats, you know, it could be that your idea, and this, you know, you could look at Shark Tank and then give you a lot of these threats and saying, well, yeah, the big monster gorilla company is going to come in and take your idea and squash you because they can scale it and put you out of business right away. So those are threats. Opportunities. Well, look, I can jump into this deal quickly because I don't have any debt. I can, you know, I'm more nimble because I don't have to answer to shareholders. So there's pluses and minuses, and you need to be aware of them. You need to go through the exercise of and analyzing where you're at, or else, you know, you're just going to go and be reactive. You're going to be like a pinball in a pinball machine, just bouncing from whatever, a good bounce and then go down the drain in a bad bounce. So you need to make sure you make a plan and really, more than anything, think about it and put it down on paper where you can go back and see it. Because in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, you're going to go back and say, why did I get in the middle of this? And then you can look at that and you'll remember, okay, this is why. Because I know that this is going to be here's where the gold is, and I just need to dig a little further. But if you just have it in your mind, the negative self-talk when the chips are down can really get you down and out.
Well, and that goes right to the quote on the front of the 3-bucket method, right? You're talking about being able to seize an opportunity because you're prepared for it. Right. When you have a business plan, and we do this annually in our company, we have every year a new business plan. We're looking at what are our financials telling us, what's our marketing telling us, what are our operations telling us. We're looking at the marketplace saying, what are the opportunities out there and the opportunity costs. So if we want to go do a new area of legal practice, there's a cost to it. There's a cost in marketing, hiring new employees, right? Maybe I could take that money and put it elsewhere and make more money off it than I could in taking this opportunity to take the money and invest it in some new sector in our business. Or if I take it and start a new sector in the business, what about my existing sectors of business? Are they going to start deteriorating? Because, by the way, one of our opportunity costs is time. And we don't account for that enough when we do our business plans on an annual basis, right? Yeah. And I love how Roadmap to Rich goes through all that. It's unbelievable, folks. I highly encourage you to get that book and read it. I want to cover a couple of estate planning topics as we get to the end here. You have been doing an unbelievable job on social media, folks. You got to look up my man, Joseph Michael Dickerson, Dickerson Law. Look up what they're doing on social media, on Facebook. He is just killing it there, getting content out to folks that is so important. One of your hot topics right now, and kids haven't been in school and college, but you have been covering a great topic about what needs to happen when you're sending your kid off to college. So I want to turn it over to you on that topic.
So some of the things you want to have in there is medical directives and things of that nature. But one of the big things that we forget as parents, especially when we're footing the bill, is you want to have authorizations to have access to their medical records. You want to have access to their grades, because now that they're adults, guess what? When I took my son up to college, we had a conversation with the counselor and said, oh yeah, but unless we have a form that says that you're authorized to receive any kind of information, medical, because with the infirmary and all that, we don't have to give you anything. And so I said, well, son, if you want me to continue paying, you need to make sure you sign this document so that I can know what your grades are, if I need to find out medical questions, that I can talk to them. So yes, those are some of the really important things to have in place. And you want to make sure those things are there, especially now that, things are a little iffy of when's, is fall gonna be when some schools start. I know right now in Texas, it's looking like they're gonna start having in-person classes in the fall, but we don't know what is in-person gonna look like. So there's a lot of other potential issues that we'll need to look at there.
Awesome. Folks, you got to understand that healthcare power of attorney with the new HIPAA regulations, when your child is an adult, including your spouse, you can't get access to medical records or make healthcare decisions for them if you don't have that healthcare power of attorney, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so really important. I love that advice. And it's funny, I don't think of it enough. And that's why when I saw your Facebook posts on it recently, I was like, oh my gosh, what a great topic. Yeah. You also have been talking a lot about estate planning in this COVID era. What are some important things? Is this driving people to really get more on top of their estate planning, or what are some things people need to think about?
Yeah, I think as usual, not as much as they probably should. They're still wanting to put things off. Our governor, and I think this is has just been lifted, or it's going to be lifted on Friday, had an executive order allowing for remote notarization by a regular notary through, if I see you on a video conference, see you signed, you send me the document, I notarize it, I send it back to you. It's official, and that notarization is valid. So that's helped with a lot of these estate planning documents, especially powers of attorney and things like that, that we need notarized. But there have been lockdowns. You can't go anywhere to get these things done, or you can't easily get anywhere, or you're afraid. You may be a high risk person. You may have be immunocompromised. You may have some kind of breathing disorder. You may have diabetes, may be overweight. So all of the different things that make you not want to go out in public, and especially not to go to a lawyer's office. That's hard enough as it is. But we can do those remote notary documents.
Yeah. It's funny. We actually, this passed as a law recently in Montana. So we now have remote notarization. We call it RON, remote online notarization. And our office has gone through and gotten approved for that from the state. It's quite the process, kind of a big pain in the rear, but what a tool. And we've used it a few times already where people have said, look, I don't want to come in, and they're concerned because they're immunocompromised. So we said, great, look, here's how we can do it. We give our clients an option. They can come in and sign, because now it's springtime, almost summer. We can meet them outside and sign documents on the picnic bench out in front of our offices. We've actually, yeah, right. Yeah. We did it as well. We had somebody stay in their car, and we did it through the window of their car. We watched them sign, and then we know they passed it through the window. And then we've done the remote notarization. It's been amazing to be able to do that and help clients with different deals, whether it's the notaring, the witnessing, it could be a deed, right? But we get online. What a great tool.
And if I can, right there, before we get too far off topic on this, notarizing through the window, a couple of weeks ago, when we did that we did that notarization through the window. We were literally standing outside of my client's window watching her sign, and I had my staff as the witnesses. Well, the importance of getting everything done is where it really hit home, because the next morning we got a call from her son, who I went to school with. He said, my mom passed away last night.
Oh, wow.
Right after she signed her will and her estate planning documents. So it's so important to not put it off.
Yes.
It's happened to me two other occasions when clients weren't so lucky. Early in my career, I had a client come in and, hey, we need to do this for your estate plan. Okay, you know what, let me think about it over the weekend, and on Monday I'll give you a call. Well, he died on Saturday.
Oh, geez.
And so, it's those things where we can't force a client to sign a will or to do anything. But the risk is there, and the fact that you've got, an intestate probate that you have to deal with is a hassle. It's a hassle because we have all these smooth, efficient things, but only if you have the right documentation.
Yes, 100%. Well, we have come to our time. Michael, I got to say, thank you so much. This was our first Zoom interview. I can't wait to get this out to everybody because the stuff you gave today was gold. So,
well, thanks, Joel.
Yeah, say hi to your wonderful wife for me, by the way. She's so awesome. Everybody, hey, I got to tell you, this man's incredible. If you are anywhere in Texas and you need business planning, estate planning, succession planning in your business, please give my man, Joseph Michael Dickerson, a call. call him, call his team, get his books, get the e-version of the books, whatever you need to do. His stuff is fantastic, folks. He doesn't get enough credit for it because he's a humble man. He doesn't go throw himself out there as an expert. He's not one of those phony experts. This is the guy who lives it every day. He has seen thousands of clients in their businesses. Michael, thank you so much for your time today. Everybody, thank you for watching. Please give us feedback. You can catch us on the podcast, any podcast platform, on the Montana Business Vlog, Silverman Law Office on YouTube. You can catch us at the Silverman Law Office website. I believe my buddy Michael here is probably going to have it up on his website, on his social media stuff, because he knows his clients are going to want to see this stuff, because this is incredible. You'll find highlights and clips on Facebook, Instagram, but please subscribe to us on YouTube. That's where you can find the full-length version. And my gosh, I want to thank our sponsors, Silverman Law Office, RC3 Coaching and Consulting, and Social Flicks. My main man, Brad Oldhouse, he's the guy doing all the editing, making me look halfway decent. My buddy Michael, he always looks good, always dressed sharp. Love it. So folks, thanks for joining us today. Have a wonderful afternoon.